On the back of some of it, he had written stuff.
Ah, so
Yeah.
he could write.
And so I was able, to find different things. Like, for example, his will was on the back of the deed for the land. It was very emotional for me.
Oh, sure.
Because I have to think that he knew one day I would come looking for him. And that determination that he had to bring those people from one place to another, that is inside of me. I have so much inside of me. And then when I came to California, when I was in I came first time when I was in elementary school, and then in junior high school, I met teachers who also were not that far removed from slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the same kind of determination within them. We had to, everything that was taken from us when we were enslaved, when we were in slavery, that became a driving force in their life to make sure that we were able to be sure-footed in who we were, where we were going. We were always told that there's a plan for our life.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the things that have happened is what has made me what I am.
And so it sounds like all of this family history and these real strong connections you have maybe has kind of set the groundwork for the literacy that you've done. And this is through the County of Los Angeles, right?
Well, let me just say this. I'm one of those people that I don't like to be contained.
Sure.
But in the 41 years that I served the County of Los Angeles, literacy was a great part of my work. But I worked for many departments.
Okay.
I would go, I want to tell young people that maybe you don't know what you want to be yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When I started off, all I knew is what they had given me.
Sure.
As they spoke into my spirit, I began to get kind of an inclination of which way to go. And I later learned, Bob did a story, and he's going to tell you about my teachers. I learned from them that I actually started helping children when I was in school, and I didn't even remember doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been going this path for a very, very long time. I really think that my work in the community was just as important as my work for the county,
Mm-hmm.
because I had the good fortune to do special projects for a wonderful supervisor by the name of Kenneth Hahn.
Mm-hmm.
He allowed me to take my passions, listen to the children, turn them into something that was mobile, and actually put them on their path.
Mm.
And I'm most appreciative for that. He really allowed me to do it. I think he thought, she can't do these things, and the determination they have put in me will make me fight to the death over something that has to do with children.
Well, now, when did your kind of partnership with Bob begin? How long running is that?
It's about 12, 13, 14 years ago.
And how did it all come to be?
Well, I was
Maybe you
working
kind of-
as a assignment editor in the Metro section of the LA Times.
Okay.
And in that job, you get pitched by all kinds of people who want you to do all kinds of stories.
Sure.
And most of the ideas are not very original or very fresh. But she continually called us with stories about people who we had never written about, and who just made wonderful pieces. For example, the flower salesman, remember him?
Yeah, the Williams family.
An elderly couple who basically ran a flower selling business in somewhere in South Los Angeles.
Okay.
And had become fixtures of the community just by their sheer humility. They were very impressive. So at one point, she calls and she says, all my teachers, they're going to start dying off. We have to find a way to honor them.
Ah.
And so she said, she put together a banquet of 600, I think, or so former students from Centennial High School, and about 50 or 60 of their teachers.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I went to this, and it was about as inspiring as a thing as I'd ever seen before. It was, all the good things we say about education and the ties between teachers and students and the impact they can have in your life.
Sure.
It was like watching it all come alive. And I did a piece on this basically for the LA Times Magazine a few months later.
Wow. And the thing that sounds so awesome about what you're saying too is it seems like with education, so often what we read tends to be critical, and that when you can read stories about the positive impact that people have had, teachers have had, administrators, and all people involved in education, directly onto students who can stand up and say, these are what people have done, not just kind of talking in vague terms, but people who are standing before their teachers saying, look, you know, you made a difference in my life, you inspired me. And that's really powerful. And to have been there and been able to write about it for the Times must have been pretty incredible.
My favorite moment of anecdote that a teacher told was one of Winnie's teachers talked about maybe walking down a street and up overhead running into one of her former students who was working for a utility company.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he said, do you remember which teacher this was? Miss Cornwell, I'm self-sufficient, because she'd always told them that's what they had to be.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And it seems like maybe literacy is one avenue that you seek to do maybe what your ultimate goal is, which is to inspire children to reach their potential.
You know, I remember Bob told me about Mr. Friedman, his teacher, and it was, Bob, why don't you share that about that?
Well, I was very lucky. My journalism teacher in high school had actually worked for a wire service and basically made working on the school paper a very serious enterprise.
Sure.
And it was during that I realized, I like this, maybe I could do this. That I could start taking it seriously because he showed me how to take it seriously. Right. And so I always felt very fortunate to have bumped into him.
Yeah.
And for me, again, it is that time that you spend with your teachers, with your grandparents, great-grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
those that have gone or had a life before who can share with you. They put, you know, gives you a plan, a perspective, which way to go. With literacy, loving books, you know, I really think one day we're going to have a computer meltdown. And I would hope that if that would happen, our young people would be able to pick up a book and read and understand the pricelessness, and if that's a good word, of having a book, to be able to read and understand or to write. You know, I mean, people have fought and died over this. Knowledge is power.
Oh, absolutely.
And that knowledge is in that book, and I think that everybody should be carrying one.
I read in the cover story of Newsweek about a week or so ago was about books, and that they're not going to die, they're just going to become digital. But that the beginning of the article starts out with saying that maybe the most perfect invention of the last, whatever, 100 years is the book. Because it's completely self-sufficient, self-contained, it's mobile, it can transport you, it can provide knowledge, it can do all these things that, you know, most people would say, oh, maybe it's the pacemaker, or maybe it's the television or the telephone, but all those things require so many other things in order to work, where the book is, you know, you can put a book on a shelf and come back in 100 years and it still works.
And not only that, on every you know, on every subject, if you would have your own library. I think that what young people don't understand is that we live in a world that would deny them the knowledge.
Sure.
If it could. Because the more you don't know, the more they can get away with.
Right.
And pull the wool over your eyes, and you never know what happens. But if you've got a library, if you've got one that you've been keeping, or every time you find a book that you can collect, you know, every time you can make a journal, talk to your grandparents, write that down, information that you can go back and call upon. It can inspire you, it can drive you, it can become that motivation to really just propel you into another dimension.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want. I want to see young people become what they're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And so if I'm going to be a door, that works for me. I love being a door.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you again. I know we are going to see you again, and you're going to have more stories to tell and more things to tell us. It was so good to meet you, Bob. I really appreciate it, and thanks for sharing with us. Winnie, excellent. Those of you watching still, please continue to do so as we have a segment on the CalSafe District Teen Parent Program.